Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's a late one tonight, but we've got a few things to talk about. We've essentially got a match reaction to do as Celtic beat Manchester City. That's right, you heard correctly. Celtic beat Manchester City last night in a pre-season friendly in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, which was also followed by some interesting comments from the Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers in regards to our business yet to be done in the transfer window. So a few things to talk about today. Let's not waste any more time. Let's talk about that. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. You guys have been unbelievable with the support recently. We are flying towards 45,000 subs. So let's try and hit that perhaps before the season kicks off next week. That would be ideal. If you haven't, drop down below. It's absolutely free. Let's talk about Celtic. So last night, Celtic took on English champions Manchester City in a pre-season friendly match where Celtic came out 4-3 winners and what was a very impressive performance by Celtic. Now, I say this time and time again in pre-season, and I'm going to say it again now just for the avoidance of doubt and so that people don't think I'm changing my tune just because suddenly Celtic have beaten a team the standard of Manchester City. Look, I don't like reading into friendlies too much. It's a friendly at the end of the day. It wasn't like City were playing their strongest side, a lot of the younger guys out there. However, you can't take away from the fact that Celtic were playing some very nice football last night and got a good result come the end of the game. We looked sharp. We look as though pre-season has really been improving the standard and fitness of our players when you compare it to the opening game against Ayr United a few weeks ago. We played some really nice stuff, and ultimately I think you're starting to see a lot more of what Brendan Rodgers wants to do with this squad, and I hope that that translates into the competitive fixtures when we start to take on Kilmarnock and Aberdeen and all these other sides. I want us to play a lot like we did last night, and as I said, despite the fact that Manchester City were playing a lot of the younger lads, you've got to remember this is a top side. Erling Haaland was still in the park. Jack Grealish was still in the park. These are guys who've won the Premier League, who've won the Champions League. They are a team that are well drilled from the most senior of players all the way down to their youth academy. And Celtic, at points in the game last night, ran rings round them. Hod that, Pep, you baldy scalper. It was a late kick-off, of course, for us over here in Scotland. midnight, Celtic took to the field in North Carolina. Celtic opened the scoring through Nicholas Kuhn, who made it 1-0. We then had to fire ourselves back into the lead through, once again, Nicholas Kuhn, who found a second 36 minutes into the game. We went into half-time 3-1 up after Kyogo's goal in the 44th minute. City then clawed a couple back, made it 3-3, including a goal from Erling Haaland. However, Luis Palma found the winner for Celtic in the 68th minute of the game. We walked out on top. A great feeling knocking off a team who I cannot stand in Manchester City. I hate them. I hate Pep. I hate their players. I hate their club. I hate everything about them. So it was a nice feeling, an added bonus for someone who hates them as much as me. But generally, in terms of the performance, I was really pleased with what I watched last night. It made staying up for it all the more sweeter. I thought there was some really nice periods of football. I thought that we dealt with City well in certain moments as well. We're going to come on to the standouts and the slight negatives in a moment. But generally, I think that there was a real nice fluidity about what we were doing. Some really beautiful passes, some great finishing. And if it's a glimpse of what we're going to see heading into the next campaign, I think that's the evidence that we kind of needed and wanted to show that Brendan Rodgers does have a plan for the football we want to play, and he does want to improve on what was some stale performances last season. Remember, for the longest time in the opening exchanges of last season, and maybe heading as deep into maybe February, March time, some of the games were really difficult to watch. Some of the football wasn't exactly its finest, but I think players are now growing in confidence, growing in faith as well. The managers invested faith in some of these players and they have repaid that. Just generally some really nice football played against Manchester City last night. The only negative is when you try and play this against the Scottish teams, it doesn't always work out because the majority of them are playing the low block and it forces you to change drastically. But yeah, they handled a lot of these really good players last night like it was a walk in the park, and I'm happy with that. Let's talk about some standouts very quickly. Kasper Schmeichel, I thought he was great last night. A fantastic introduction to the Celtic fans. A 45 minutes in that first half where he made some huge saves, showing that he's still a fantastic shot stopper. And I don't think anybody doubted that he was still a fantastic shot stopper. Obviously, there was doubts about the manner of the signing, and maybe if we were going for someone a little past their sell-by. But this is somebody who's still a top keeper, making big saves in front of Erling Haaland. Some of his shots stopped by Schmeichel. He was really unlucky to concede that goal in the first half. In fact, Liam Scales just kind of struggled to clear it off the line. But a great introduction. Hopefully we'll see more and more of that as the season goes on. Of course, we all know important saves can win you league titles, and that's exactly why we've brought in somebody with the experience of Kasper Schmeichel. He's done it at Leicester City, won the Premier League, helped with some big saves. It's time for him to do that at Celtic. Hope that's what we'll see again out of him against Chelsea at the weekend. Got to talk about Matt O'Reilly. I think he's just unbelievable. You'd think that he was advertising himself to Manchester City last night, a team that's not been linked to Matt O'Reilly, but after some of the passes he played last night, you'd think that he would be on their radar. Unbelievable stuff, and it makes you desperate to see him. I really want to see him stay. I'm desperate for him to stay. One of his passes that led to the goal, one of the goals was just unbelievable stuff, and it shows the real quality we've got in him. So, you know, it's not great in the view of things where you look at it like, well, the teams that want him will see that and it will encourage them to bid higher, and maybe that move will accelerate. But the other thing is, and I think the board have got to look at this, the quality that Matt O'Reilly has, we can't shoddily replace him. He needs to be replaced with someone with a very high standard, because you lose somebody with that calibre of football in their boots, then, you know, you really struggle to recover. Great from him last night. And I think the guy we've got to talk about the most from last night's performance and last night's victory is Nicholas Kuhn, who was just unbelievable. Two of his goals were absolutely brilliant. The finishing on both his goals was... Where has he been hiding that? Where has that been? This is somebody who has really needed a pre-season under his belt at Celtic, and now he's getting it. And I'm really excited to see what he brings. He was somebody who last year on the channel I defended time after time in live streams, on videos and match reactions, when people were saying he was gumph and he wasn't going to be good enough. I kept trying to, listen, he arrived in January, he arrived late, he's somebody who's going to have to settle, and we've had to be patient. And listen, I'm not saying after one pre-season friendly game that he's the best thing from sliced bread, but I think you could see clear improvements in his game, including his finishing. So that's really good for us. We want a right winger who can be consistently good, somebody who's ready to take us into the future as well. Could that be Nicholas Kuhn? I don't think it takes away from the fact that we really need quality on the wings. A quality winger should be a priority for Celtic in this window, but if Kuhn can produce that over the course of a 38-game season, then, you know, we're looking at somebody who's only starting to get cooking. And remember, you know, when he came in, he spoke very honestly about the problems he was having. There was some sort of dental issue which caused him to fluctuate in his weight. He wasn't really keeping well, and that affected his game and his confidence greatly. So to put all of that behind him, to win a league and cup double with Celtic, to now have a full pre-season training under Brendan Rodgers and with the rest of the side, it could prove huge for him, and I'm really excited to see what he brings this season. So fair play for his performance last night. You know, a lot of people who are not Celtic supporters were tuning into that game last night because Manchester City were playing. A lot of American viewers because it was in the USA, and a lot of non-American viewers were just tuning in for the sake of it. And Nicholas Kuhn is one of the main talking points, if not the biggest talking point following that, which is crazy. He's added a few million quid to his price tag for what we paid. Lovely. I don't want to bring up negatives because it's a friendly at the end of the day, and I don't like getting carried away on either side of the spectrum. There was definitely things that had to be picked up on last night, and I think the manager knows exactly what that is, and I think he's known for a while. The defence needs improved on ASAP. A lot of these defenders are well out of depth, I think. Without Vickers around, without Johnston around, you can see that they were lacking real quality at the back. So I think that needs to be picked up on. Ralston was really poor, I thought, last night. Scales, I didn't think was much better. Welsh, I thought, wasn't much better. So we need to bring in defenders. That's the only thing that I could fault from last night's game. But overall, very happy. The manager commented after the game, so we'll talk about that, shall we? It has been a frustrating transfer window, we all know that, but Brendan Rodgers has given the Celtic supporters some reassurance when it comes to signing players in this window and trying to have a much better squad. by the end of the transfer window. Also detailing some of his conversations with the higher-ups on the Celtic board. Brendan Rodgers spoke about a meeting with Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay of the Celtic board, of course the CEO and the CFO. Very important people. They are the ones that splash the money. Brendan Rodgers said this. He said, we had a long meeting with Michael and Chris today, so we know the targets we want to bring in. There's still a long way to go in the window. I think my concentration is that we know what we want to do. We know the priority positions that we want to improve. Whilst the club gets on with that, myself and the coaches are really focused on the improvement of this team. So at some point before the end of August, I would expect us to have the players that we want in. I make it clear to the Celtic supporters, we know what we want to improve the squad, and by the end of the window shuts, I expect us to be that. So Brendan Rodgers giving Celtic fans a virtual guarantee, you could say, that this squad will be improved on by the end of August as he gets on with his job in the training ground at Lennoxtown. He has instructed Chris Mackay and Michael Nicholson to get on with it and splash the cash and build on the areas that he thinks needs improved on. You could only assume that will include in the centre-back area, the left-back area, another striker should Adam Eden not sign, and maybe a couple others. But I'm glad that Brendan Rodgers has clarified that we are working and we are trying to get these players in. Now, I know a lot of people doubt Brendan at points, a man of his word. You could argue that. But I don't think that he would come out and give us these comments if the board weren't trying to make these signings happen. So, you know, it's all about the board investing in him now and the faith that they have in Brendan Rodgers to really take this team to the next level. And I've always tried to be understanding within this transfer window that if we want to sign the right players and the right quality, that we'll need to be patient, that we'll need to wait. These deals can't be done overnight. Especially if money is as big as what it should be. You know, if we're talking about players who might cost £7, £8, £9 million, you don't want to rush into them. You want to make sure the research is done properly, the negotiations are done properly. So I'm hoping that Brendan can be trusted on what he's saying, and I'm hoping that Michael Nicholson is writing big cheques out, because this squad does need improving. So keep an eye out over the next few weeks to see if any transfer stories pop up. I, of course, will be reporting them on the channel as they do. Nothing today, sadly, but working under secrecy. I wouldn't mind it. Surprise us, Celtic. Give us something to shout about. Lovely jubbly. We know that one of those areas that need improved on is the left-back area. Brendan Rodgers needs to bring in someone to accompany Greg Taylor in that role. Should he be injured or drop out for any reason, we don't have another natural left-back in the side. But talking about Greg Taylor, he's commented on his Celtic future as his contract winds down. Only 10 months left on his deal at Celtic, and he's been honest in his assessment, saying he doesn't know what's going to happen next. Greg Taylor said this in the media, we'll see what happens. I honestly don't know. I've got 10 months left on my deal. It's football, it's business. You understand that's part of it, so I'm sure these things eventually work themselves out. Is it on my mind? Not at the forefront. I wouldn't say so, but of course, you've got 10 months left in your contract. You know the situation you're in, so we'll just see what happens. I would assume Celtic will offer a contract to Greg Taylor over the next few months. I don't think he necessarily needs to be the starting left back for the foreseeable future at Celtic, but he definitely deserves his credit and his respect for doing a job over there in that position for the last few years. He has been a vital part of this team, and despite being criticised at times, I think that he has brought a lot to this team, especially in a mental capacity, when he's been one of the louder figures that we hear about quite a lot through coaches and different managers. So I hope they do offer him a deal. I hope he's interested in staying, even if it is to come in and out the team, whatnot. Should we sign a starting left back? I think he deserves a deal at the very least, though, and hopefully that will be sorted. But nothing as of yet. Right, it's roasting. I'm sweating up here, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Back tomorrow, hopefully, with some juicy transfer news. We'll wait and see. But until then, take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening. God bless you, and I'll see you all next time.